Well, we are living in troubled times. The last 2 months I have heard more death news than I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's all the more disturbing when you hear about people, ending their lives forcefully. It doesn't matter which spectrum of the society they belong to. They could be rich or poor, educated or illiterate, but it still hurts when you see that people, come to a place of taking their own lives. In the last 2 or 3 days, we have been seeing the news of Sushant Singh Rajput, a bright star who committed suicide. And the very next day, another young class 10 student who couldn't bear the loss of his favorite actor Sushant Singh, in a very similar fashion, he hanged himself, and he left a suicide note which said, "If he can do it, why can't I?" We are becoming aware of the tragedy that is plaguing our community. The National Crime Records data says one student commits suicide in India every 1 hour. 28 reported suicides in a day. India seemed to be, ranking as the highest suicide rate in the whole of Southeast Asia. So why do people have to end their lives? It's not a new problem like Corona. It's an age-old question. It's a problem that people have been grappling time and again. They've been trying time and again to, grapple with this question. Does life has any meaning to itself? Well, we read about a king called Solomon in the Bible, and he asked the same question. Does life has any meaning to it? And he said life is vanity. It's just like a breath that passes away. It's like trying to grasp a wind, trying to chase a wind. And it's very interesting that this king who ruled Jerusalem had everything in his life. He pursued happiness in every form, and it's all recorded in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and he goes one after the other. He says, I have built mansions, palaces, I have planted gardens, set up parks, and he's talking about living in one of the wealthiest mansions that he has ever built. Second, he says, I amassed great wealth, silver and gold and great riches. And he turned out to be one of the richest king who ever ruled Jerusalem. And then he says, I spent a lot of time in cultural arts like music and singing and theater. He had all the entertainment that you could have in the whole world. And he says, I had my own harem. A harem is a place where a king has all the beautiful women at his disposal. And the list goes on. He says, I tried to cheer myself with wine. In spite of all of that, he says, it only gave me an empty feeling. And he goes on to ask, life is still meaningless. It's empty. And then finally it concludes in that chapter, Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I want to just read one verse, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 25. And this is what he says in 26. For without God, who can eat or find enjoyment? To the man who pleases God, he gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. And finally concludes by saying, apart from God, there is no joy in life. There is no happiness. There's no success. There's no knowledge. You see, all this happiness and joy and success, and it's a byproduct of knowing God. When you take God out of your equation, life has no meaning. Blaise Pascal made a very profound statement. He said, there is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man. It's a God-shaped hole. It's something like a huge void in the shape of God. And we try to fill it with so many things. It doesn't fit in. We try to fill it with success. We try to fill it with relationships. We try to fill it with money. But it just doesn't fit in there. It just still leaves a longing, a deep-seated longing and a need in our hearts, because only God can fill it. Well, that's precisely why Jesus came into the world. He came to give us life. The Bible says the thief comes to kill, steal and destroy, but Jesus came to give us life. Most often when I've spoken to people who are contemplating suicide, they've always told me two things. One, they've always felt life is empty. There is no meaning in this life that they are living. And secondly, they've always told me that there is some strange dark force which is constantly pushing them to end their lives. I think we have to do at least two things. We have to be consciously aware of the people around us who are hurting. We need to show that we love and care. for the ones who are in need, who are desperate and lonely. Second thing, we have to tell them that it's Jesus who can change their lives. It's Jesus who can take away that emptiness and fill their lives with meaning and purpose and make them complete.